the rest of your party suffer from the fact you can use a spear with your feet. Salutations! Now, while I have been having a blast with Pokemon ZA, there is one thing I've been dying to do since I started this channel, and that is make TTRPG content. For this, if you've followed me from the Hilt, you already know what I'm talking about. Indeed, I am here. Finally, it is time for the series I have been talking about for ages. It is now on From the Hilt. Today is the day I finally do Lenharrow for Dummies! Yes! So, for a basic idea, this is a bare minimum summary. So, essentially like Joe Cat's Dungeons and Dragons videos, all I really do here is just explain what Lenharrow is, why I have such a fun time playing it, and essentially to give you just a bare minimum idea of what I'm working with here on Lenharrow. And without further ado, let's get to it. Now, this picture here is what the Lenharrow's player guide looks like. I honestly love it. The tiger made this. It looks pretty cool, not gonna lie. And this is what you need so you know what you need in order to play it. You need the Lenharrow Player's Guide. They have two versions. One is normal and the other is the enhanced edition. I recommend getting the enhanced edition specifically on DriveThruRPG. I will put the links to the necessary guides to play Lenharrow in the description below. There is a physical copy available for those who like physical, but I still recommend getting the PDF version first if you're not quite sure about it. And I just recommend the enhanced edition specifically just because there's so much more in it. And there's even some unique races that you can play as in it as well. Next, you need the character sheet. Now, the character sheets for Lenharrow are actually incredibly easy to find. There's the printed paper version, there's a Word document or Excel sheet. If you get the book or the PDF, it's available through that. You're just going to need to reprint it. And the Excel sheet is a little passion project I've been working on for some time now. It is almost done. I just gotta finish typing up an absolute monster of a spell list. But other than that, it's pretty easy to get a hold of these things. A pencil and paper for notes if you're the kind that struggles with remembering stuff, like me. It's also so you can write down your character's backstory, any additional info there's just not room for on the character sheet, a character concept, and a mind willing to learn the game. I actually plan to do a live stream series here soon where I do tutorials about making characters and even make some pre-made characters for you. Leave comments of your favorite character, what characters you'd like me to do. I want it to be a series where I collab with people, so be sure to ping whoever you want me to collab with in the comments below. Anyway, onward and onward, friend. Alright. Now, here is character concept. This is more of a specified list of things for it. So, you could be an original NOC, which just means original character, like what Hardcore Rashkardian Dabria Gardrai is for me, where all you need is just like some vague idea of what direction you want to take a character and it'll work. A character from a movie, book, a TV show, etc., etc. It could even be your favorite celebrity if you wanted it to. Like, really, sky's the limit here. You could even make an old Dungeons and Dragons character into a Lenharrow character. Quite easily, I might add. Or, you know, you could always be some kind of obscure meme like Blorbobleepus. Generally, it's just if it works for Dungeons and Dragons, it'll work for Lenharrow. Not 20, baby! Alright. So there are now for the similarities and differences between Dungeons and Dragons and Lenharrow. First, we'll go for the similarities. First off, they use the same dice sets. They can use the same campaign materials. They are both social games best learned with someone experienced at the helm. As for the differences between Lenharrow and Dungeons & Dragons, there is no level up system. It uses all the dice in your dice sets, not just the D20 and occasionally a D10 or D8 or D4 here and there. No, like, when I tell you there is not a single dice I have not used in any of the campaigns I've been in. You wind up with more skills. So, like, the skill lists are expansive for this game and weirdly and extremely specific. So that way you don't have to spend like 30 minutes debating on whether or not slamming a door is an athletics check or not. You get more spells. I was not kidding about a monster of a spell sheet, man. That I have the packet with me. It's like 8 pages long. It's double-sided. It's long. There's a lot of spells that cover a lot of areas. There's more classes, which in Lenharrow are called professions. But you wind up with so much more specific stuff, and yet because it's more specific, I find it's more freeing. That's me personally, but you know, it's up to you, the viewer. And there are more races. You wind up with a lot more freedom when it comes to races. Honestly, put in the how many of you out there, when playing Dungeons & Dragons, have this really cool character concept, but you're just a part of a campaign where the GM is a real stickler for using the actual official materials and not homebrew, making any character you come up with impossible to use, because nearly every single character you can make has some level of homebrew in it. That has happened to me before several times. So annoying. But on this, because there's more races, more classes, just more of everything, I find it so much easier to go for a build I want to without feeling the need for homebrew. And lastly, there is personality instead of alignment. So essentially, alignment that's like lawful good, lawful evil, neutral, like true neutral, neutral good, neutral evil, list goes on to like 9. Those are, let's face it, very ambiguous, and 10, for those who don't know, ambiguous is just another way of saying snotty, stuck up, and extremely vague. And terms like good and evil are also extremely relative depending on whose perception you're going for. No one ever follows the alignment system to the letter, almost ever. I have never met a single Dungeons & Dragons player who followed that. But what the difference between personality and alignment here is essentially personality allows you to have a set of roleplay specific rules that you wind up having to do in the campaign. Much like how a Nuzlocke works in Pokemon, where it's like, if a Pokemon dies, you have to release it or put it in a graveyard, right? It adds an extra layer of challenge to the game. I've personally never played with personality, but each personality trait has its own sort of fatal flaw in the mix that if you follow along with it well, if you are clever with the personality, you will find yourself with lots of rewards from the referee or the GM. And if you don't, then you can be penalized for it. At least that's what I've heard. Again, I've never used it before personally. I play Lenharrow with the creator, and there have been several and I have heard stories directly from the horse's mouth about what happens when you don't follow the personality alignment if you choose to go down that route. Personality is a thing for advanced players, so unless you want more of that, you want to hear more on it, I won't worry about it and touch on it until it's like the last sinking thing. And lastly, more specific and roleplay based overall. When I tell you I've spent entire 12-hour sessions in one fight in Dungeons & Dragons, but in Lenharrow, I swear longest I've spent in combat is like maybe an hour. And that's mainly because we all decided to roleplay or rolled very poorly on persuasion to try and talk our way out of combat. Either way, combat goes so much faster. And more on that later. Up next, races! So these are what Lenharrow offers as races. Just to give you a little bit of a taste, a little bit of an idea of what things you could do, because trust me, it is so much more expansive. They have the traditional fantasy role-playing game races like human, elf, dwarf, gnome, and halfling. They have more unique ones like drolls, animen. Why do I have drolls twice? Okay. So, drolls are essentially like Agnologia from Fairy Tale. They are your humanoid dragon characters. In other words, scalies. And animen tend to be your typical anime demi-human, range from your typical anime demi-human, which is what I tend to play, straight down to straight up furry territory. Which is what Tiger tends to play. There's gargoyles, which if you have ever seen the TV show, the Disney Plus TV show Gargoyles with Keith David in it, that is actually what the gargoyle race is based on, largely. Like, there's a bunch of different stuff that the gargoyles in Lenharrow do that make it different, but Disney Gargoyles was the inspiration for that. And it's an official stat block, so no homebrew needed for it. And Giantines, I've never played a Giantine character before, but they're your basic giant race, like Andre the Giant. Or Willy from Fun and Fancy Free. Or most of you would know him from Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, I guess. They have one called a Gara. I will level with you. I've completely forgotten what that is. I haven't completely read through the player's handbook yet. But, you know what? If there is one where it fits, then I'll probably use it then, and we'll discover it together. Gremdillions. Again, I don't know what that one is. And half-breeds. Half-breeds are unique as, from what I've seen in the player's handbook, essentially allow you to combine two of them together. And there's plenty more where that came from, of course. Up next here is lifestyle and profession. This is Lenharrow's version of background and class. Like, the lifestyle is what your background is. So, like, noble, nomad, wanderer, that sort of deal. And profession is class, so like your swordsmen, your fighters, your barbarians, that sort of thing. It's quite the interesting system they have there. That, again, if you want, leave a like and comment if you want me to make more detailed on this, because I'm not sure where to. Once I finish this video, I'm not sure where I'm gonna go after this. So whichever comic gets the most likes, I will make a video on next. At any rate, now, this is a lifestyle and profession versus chart. So let's start with lifestyle. There is adventure. Some examples are adventurer, bounty hunt for lifestyles are adventurer, bounty hunter, common laborer, nobleman, religious man, savage, a scholar, a soldier, survivalist, tradesman, and there's so many more. So many more. And profession, and a common list of professions here is common laborer, which is basically like your factory workers. This is the class that John Henry would be if you were to make a character for him. And assassin. We all know the assassin type. Some image of a ninja probably popped into your head when you heard that. That is exactly what assassin is. Why is this so slow? There, another example is a magi, a clansman, herald, a messenger, a midwife, a sailor, mage, holy inquisitor. There's so many sticking more. I had to pick from random around the pages, but when I tell you there's easily like 15 more classes, 15 more professions you can pick from. Levels? No need. Lenharrow's doesn't use a level up system. Instead, you wind up enhancing your stats based on how many sessions you actually play with your character. You earn skills by gaining character generation points awarded by the DM, GM, or referee based on how many sessions you get and how well you do in that particular session. So honestly, it's a great system. This winds up allowing for a lot of different, essentially different levels and power scaling sort of thing with your parties. So like you miss one session, everyone else gets an enhancement. You don't have to worry too much about falling behind, because you're not screwed up by missing a massive level up session. You won't be screwed over by this, because instead of doing it with everybody else, you'd just enhance your skill sheet after the next session you play. So, no worries. It's all very low stakes, man. You wind up being barred from nothing. There's very few ways you can actually bar yourself from specific things like divine skills. Honestly, it's actually easier to bar yourself from divine skills than it is from like martial arts skills, trade skills, and actual arcane magic. There's very few ways you wind up sorry. There are very few ways you can screw yourself over in that regard. If you can make it make sense for your character, with referee permission, you have to work with your ref on this. You can make it happen. Stats? Yes. So in Lenharrow, stats are known as ability scores and function a bit differently to what they do in D&D. So strength in Dungeons and Dragons is now might. Dexterity is now agility. Wisdom is now insight. Intelligence is intellect. Charisma is now charm. And constitution would be your vitality. While they do still have the same basic function, there's also a fair bit more you can do with them than in Dungeons and Dragons. Checks, yes, but there are also feats which require a percentile dice, and there's a lot more that require feats than you would think. Now you might be wondering, what's the preferred ability score generation method? It's almost like every single game has their own version, which, yes, they do. And while technically you could use other methods, I have listed here the exact one that the creator himself recommends. And the creator approved method is rolling 1d10 and add a d8 and add 8 for the 6 ability scores. If you wind up getting lower than a 10, they let you mine. The creator himself will let you re-roll it, so you can have at least somewhat of a balanced skill sheet, but it's also not a big deal if you wind up with an extremely low thing. You're just making the early game harder for yourself, which if you like playing Kaizo Ironmon, be my stinking guest. And in Lenharrow, there are specialized spaces on your sheet. There's protections, which is a much more specific list of things that your armor and natural abilities cover than just a single number like the DC. Your defensive rating isn't the only thing you have. Isn't like a one-size-fits-all approach to damage, essentially. Which, honestly, is really awesome because it never quite made too much sense why there was only one defense thing for Dungeons & Dragons at all, but anyway. Then you have resistances, which is basically the number you need to hit to matrix dodge enemy attack spells or absorb like a sponge. There's also senses, which is basically a number so you know exactly how sensitive and overstimulated your character should be in the club. And traits which are skills you have based on which race you chose for easy viewing access. Like lower limb manipulation. That one always makes me giggle. So, lower limb manipulation is basically a trait if you're an animan, which essentially allows you to use your feet like hands and tail like it's an extra hand, essentially. A wild skill, highly recommend getting it even if you're not an animan, just so you can pull some outrageous Tarzan bull. And just let the rest of your party suffer from the fact you can use a spear with your feet. Now, we are into the section of the video where I go over Dungeons & Dragons versus Lenharrow. I will be referring to it as D&D from this point onward because it is such a mouthful to say the full thing. And this, we will be starting on combat. For D&D, we have extremely limited combat options. It takes an entire action to switch weapons, which doesn't really make sense since it takes less than 10 seconds for real-world experienced swordsmen to actually switch between weapons. It just doesn't really make sense. Combat also takes most of the session, and there's not exactly an easy way to leave combat if you want to. Which last one is a real sticking point for me because I almost never have the brain space for actual combat, ever. My brain just kind of shuts off with combat because I've been in so many where it's just taken forever. For the Lenharrow side of things, you get over 100 different combat skills or attack options. And you can even combine them to basically double, triple, quadruple, however probability works, you can get so many more options than you do in Dungeons & Dragons without the need for homebrew. I cannot emphasize this enough. I'm saying all of this without taking homebrew into question. You can do combo attacks, man. Actual combo attacks exist for classes outside of monk, and that's awesome. So cool. And you can switch weapons and still attack in the same turn. That counterattacks are an option, man. You are not helpless until your next turn. If you decide to switch from a crossbow to a sword, and it takes only a small portion of the session, as long as you're not a murder hobo. Like, as long as you don't pull an Aaron Yeager, you're fine. And disengaging in combat is an actual thing. You can just leave combat, come back to pull a big sneak attack later, and do that, provided that there are places you can hide and disappear in the room, or like smoke bombs, that sort of thing. So provided you have all of that on you, you can do that and pull sneak attack over and over again as many times as you need. Whereas in Dungeons & Dragons, you try to do sneak attack as soon as combat starts, essentially. Outside of round 1, no matter what you do, I've known people who've played rogues, and I've actually tried doing this myself at least once. Outside of turn 1, sneak attack is just winding up not being a viable option anymore in Dungeons & Dragons, which, even if you have, like, some kind of way to make yourself invisible, it's just kind of silly by that point. Because if you're invisible, he can't see you. He can't see you. So provided you're moving around as you're making new attacks, taking your attacks from different places, shouldn't it all be sneak attacks since he doesn't exactly know where you are? That is some food for thought. And the referee tends to rule yes in the groups I've played in most of the time when it comes to Lenharrow. And now we are on skills for D&D. In D&D, you only have 18 skills to pick from. Yes, I did actually count. Every group I have been in, was always a debate on which skills you should use. Was always a massive pain. Proficiencies, and I find proficiencies extremely confusing. Like, in the book, it's just incredibly vague, because it's like, in the player's handbook, it's like over-explained while also not being simple enough at the same time. I'm not sure if anybody else has experienced that or if that's just a me thing, but yeah. In Lenharrow now, you can easily choose close to 200 skills. I tried counting. I really, truly did. But, oh my word, there are so many. So I lost count after the first page. There's like 3, maybe 4 pages of skills to choose from, and none of it is double spaced, man. The skills are less broad, which means there's less debate to pick from. Like, if, let's say you're going to a party and you're braiding, like, I wish I had my character sheet within an easy arm's reach, because I don't have a specific enough scenario for that. But there's lots of cool things you can use, like, Princess Diaries! Princess Diaries is a perfect example of this, where the scene where Mia has to light a ceremonial fire for her coronation, the second film, where she's prepping herself and training herself to do that. Essentially, while in Dungeons & Dragons, it would just be a simple ability check. If you rolled a nat 1 on that would be it. You would have nothing else to worry about. You'd be just screwed over. You'd never have your cool moment. In Lenharrow, though, you have options. There's your option for 1, using your typical archery skill. to try and make it. If not, you also have the option to try your showmanship skill, because this is for a ceremony in front of tons of people, which obviously counts as some kind of performance, right? And then you would also be able to use your skill for if you have a deity, you'd be able to use a special ceremony skill. I forget the name of it, but it's under divine skills, and it essentially allows you a little bit more of a boost and an advantage. So you'd have all of those modifiers plus whatever you'd have all those modifiers, plus you'd be able to use your feat for the archery, I think. If I'm remembering right, archery is a feat. But either way, you have enough skills and modifiers that you'd basically be guaranteed to succeed no matter what you roll, is provided you have those skills. If you don't have those skills, you can still roll in them. You just won't be able to use the modifiers. Anywho, so now which is literally what I just said. You can use your skill. You can use skills, even if you don't have it. It would just be a higher DC save for the whatever check is required to succeed or use it. If you don't, whether or not it's actually a DC or not. You would essentially have to roll. One thing that I love about Lenharrow that I just now remembered is that in Lenharrow, lower number is better. You essentially you have to roll within whatever your stat you rolled is. You have to roll within between 1 and whatever that number is. So like 1 and 18. That sort of thing. So no matter, which is why the lowest possible you can get in Lenharrow when doing stats using the creator's preferred method is a 9. Because, oh my word, you would have such a hard time with succeeding in that. But man, it's just fun. It is just so much fun. All of this together honestly allows you maximum creativity in combat, because skills aren't roleplay specific. Up next, we have spells. Spells are so much fun. So, for Dungeons and Dragons spells, not counting homebrew, because I know literally almost everyone plays with at least one homebrew spell on your thing. You're not slick, man. I see you. But this is only what's in the handbook, okay? Personally, for spell mechanics, as someone who's mostly played spellcasters throughout her D&D career, the whole spellbook mechanic is just annoying and confusing. I could never wrap my head around it. Like, the spellcaster I played most of the time was druid, because they memorize their stinking spells. Unlike wizard, there's over 360 spells. And unfortunately, you wind up completely locked out of spells based on chosen class, which honestly never sat right with me. I hated that. And dedicated build rules are fuzzy. Like, let me give my druid vicious mockery and just turn into a freaking magpie and just use vicious mockery as I'm laughing at laughing them, driving them nuts. Let me do that, man. But you can't in D&D. You just can't. And again, dedicated build rules are fuzzy. Like, I wanted to play an actual necromancer in Dungeons and Dragons, but I could never figure out the wizard rule set at all. And even then, with the school of necromancy stuff, the rules were just so fuzzy, man. I just could not wrap my head around it, even with Joe Cat's wizard guide. And when you choose a spellcasting class, for the most part, unless you pick Eldritch Fighter, you're locked out of physical attacks. Like, you have to pick between either having spells or or being able to throw a decent punch. It's not fair. Not fair, man. No way. Let me cast Fireball in somebody's face while stabbing them with my knife. In Lenharrow, metronome exists. You might be wondering why that's the first thing on the list. When I say metronome, I mean the movement metronome from Pokemon. So when I say it exists in Lenharrow, I am saying that there is a spell in Lenharrow called Random Prismatic. It is a level 1 spell that essentially functions just like metronome in Pokemon. You essentially cast a random spell that comes to mind, and it could be any spell at all, from anywhere in the 8 freaking page packet. So you could by casting Random Prismatic, you could cast anywhere from Grease to... Let's see, what's the nastiest spell I can find in here? Yes. To essentially summoning a Trask at random. So many options, man. So many options for what you could do. Yeah. Jake Pendragon actually he's a character in one of our campaigns. In one campaign I played, his favorite spell to use was Random Prismatic. When I tell you, there were so many funny moments because of this. He basically blew up the entire town once. It's funny. It's funny. Oh man, it's made even worse by the fact that Random Prismatic was the only spell he had. Like, that was his best spell, but also his worst. I would laugh myself silly, man. Whenever he tried to use it to do something cool, it almost never worked out for him. It was great. And Lenharrow, no matter what you choose, there's like maybe 1 or 2 backgrounds that completely prevent you from using magic, period. But even then, there are ways to circumvent that to give yourself at least some kind of spell. So, like, you're basically never locked out of spells. Dedicated builds are way easier to make because of the specificity of your skill sets and the spells you can get. It's categorized much better than in Dungeons and Dragons, in my opinion. And dedicated build, like making a build dedicated to a specific character concept, or let's say building a necromancer or a waterbender from Avatar in it, is just so much easier to do because you have access to the entire spell library at all times. Like, you may not be able to cast any higher rank spells if you choose to learn the 9th rank spells out of the gate, but there is a way you can learn them, and there's just no way you could screw up or accidentally lock yourself out of a pathway, which is nice. And one thing for Lenharrow that I absolutely love is that there is an entire custom profession that casts spells like Luz from the Owl House. They are called Scroll Masters, and I love that this exists, because it just never quite made sense why wizards couldn't memorize their spells. For this one, they don't memorize their spells. While they have their spells memorized, they just need to have an additional physical action taken in order to cast spells, like Lucino said, drawing on her notepad in this GIF. And I love that because it actually makes sense. And there are clearer and simpler spell types. Like, everything's based on what kind of element, energy, faction, blah blah blah, you name it, it's in there. And again, you want a more specific video, like and comment that you want one on spells. But for right now, we are moving on to pets and familiars. In Dungeons and Dragons, there's a lack of customization options. You get an animal, or pet, or even a workhorse, or a summon an animal, you're basically stuck with just the monster spreadsheet with no means to actually teach your pet any cool tricks, or you're just stuck with a monster spreadsheet, essentially, with no hope to change it. I haven't met a person yet that knew how to do that in Dungeons & Dragons without going into homebrew, so that's fun. Yep, all you can really use is a monster stat block. The pet you get is barely present at all in combat, period, because there's not exactly a lot of good moves you can do with a deer. You can kick, you can ride him out of combat to run with your tail between your legs like a coward, but not much else, honestly. And yeah, homebrew is the only way to make him unique, in my experience. I've tried finding ways to customize them in the monster manual, or at least give a new skill, find ways you can actually advance your pet with the player, but that is a system that just doesn't exist in D&D, which is honestly a missed opportunity. In Lenharrow, however, there is, I kid you not, an entire character sheet just for them. It will be in the description. I bought all of the PDFs for these, so I know exactly which one has what. I haven't read through all of them yet, though. There's also, pets can cast spells. I cannot tell you how crazy it is that a pet or a familiar has the ability to cast spells alongside you. It's awesome. Combat with a pet in the party is just awesome. There is no homebrew needed to customize because your pet can learn along with your character, provided you're able to find a trainer or have an animal training skill. There is armor. There was more on here. Let's see here. The pets and familiars. Oh, yeah, you can also do combo attacks with your pet. Let's say you have a dog with you in your party, and your dog got higher than you on the initiative, right? You can have your dog attack and distract them, make your enemy prone while also attacking with them. Or if you've got the exact same on the initiative, you can actually just sick them on them and just backstab, combo attacks where you can attack alongside your pet. Actually, now we move on to personality. Okay, so now for personalities, they're actually quite fun. In D&D, there's only 9 different kinds. All are very relative terms: good, evil, neutral, blah, 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 blah. It has 0 impact on gameplay whatsoever. Are called alignments. Literally everyone ignores them. Even most DMs. I doubt Matthew Mercer ever actually pays attention to the actual alignment of anything. He chooses to play with that as an idea in Critical Role. I'm sorry. Versus in Lenharrow, there are dozens of different personalities to choose from. There's one where you can be fiercely loyal, and you essentially play as Rainbow Dash. You don't betray your party ever. Or there's one called Wanderlust, that you essentially can't stay in one place for too many sessions, where you have to move where your character lives every once in a while. It has an actual impact on the game. There are actually ways for the GM to penalize you for not heeding your personality type if you pick it. One of the worst things he could do is take away your CGPs. Believe me, it's business. There are fatal flaws, which are still quite interesting. I call them fatal flaws because I'm not sure exactly what they are. Again, I haven't used personality yet at all, because it's recommended for advanced players, and while I am technically a veteran player, there's still so much about this game I'm learning as I'm going through this. I kind of screwed this up. Okay, hello. And now we've got Lenharrow's Got Talent. Talents, in a nutshell, are skills that are powered by ability scores. So they are things like the ability to draw or paint. Skills that have a more physical aspect to them, but still require a small amount of talent to be good at. Do they require a butt ton of work? Yes. Yes, they do. They are still skills you can learn, but you still have to have a little bit of talent for it to actually, in order to learn that skill fast, right? They are mostly used in roleplay, but they can actually make a big difference in combat. I don't have a specific example off the top of my head, but I'm sure you'll find an example once you're over in For the Hills. If you ever watched in For the Hill, you know this already. It's all up to the player to use them, so if you're in a situation where you think a specific talent you've got might be useful in the situation, tell your referee. Just tell them. Trust me, you will be glad you did. And you can only use the modifier if you have the talent. There we go. And now, do you want more? You got it. Comment your favorite character for media, and I will make a video or live stream turning them into a sheet. And if you want another video on Lenharrow, just be sure to like it so I know you want to see more. Share to get your friends in on the game. And subscribe and click all notifications so you stay in the know no matter what I do next. Until then, and until my next video, bye-bye for now.